so they found out that it was easier to control people to give them a story of existence, have them believe that, and prohibit them from having their own direct access to God.
Hello and welcome to the Increased Life podcast. My name is Jackson Gage, and this is my podcast. Some say the most intriguing podcast in the world, and I do agree with those that say that. So thank you for saying that. Got a good episode today. Really good conversation about psychedelics and mental health, and I'm really looking forward to you hearing it, whether you have used psychedelics for your mental health before, or if you're thinking about it. Either way, this is going to be a really good, informative conversation for you. Plus, I want to connect you with my guest because he's doing the work to help people with these modalities. So first and foremost, though, I just want to thank you for listening. I appreciate it. I appreciate the support. I appreciate people sharing what we're doing and hitting me up. Make sure you leave a rating and review and subscribe either on iTunes or Spotify. You know, that helps us get the message out. So just go to Spotify and hit follow and hit the amount of stars that you want to leave. Plus the videos on Spotify. So that's pretty dope. There's only a small percentage of podcasts right now with video on Spotify, and we are one of them. But anyhow, with that being said, yeah, let's just get right down to the show. This is a good one today. I was connected with my guest by a friend of mine that I trained Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with. Shout out Steve Campbell, aka McAvoy. And he had run into Gerardo in Ocean Beach, the beautiful neighborhood that I live in here in San Diego. Yeah, Steve told me I should connect with this guy. I hit him up, and I ended up purchasing his book, which is Taking Back My Mind. You can pick it up on Amazon or on his website. Taking Back My Mind, My Journey Out of Depression with Psilocybin Mushrooms. And we're going to get into that story today. Super cool guy. Before we did this episode, I went and met with him and had coffee in Ocean Beach. And, you know, we hit it off right away. A lot of dudes doing a lot of healing for a lot of people and for himself. And that's where the real work is, right? Working on ourselves. And then as we work on ourselves, you know, we generate a light within ourselves, and we're able to share that light with the people around us and help people get on the right path, right, to happiness and inner peace and alignment with God. My guest today is definitely doing the work, and in all facets. His name is Gerardo Urias, and he's an author, a breathwork facilitator, a public speaker, a personal coach, a psychedelic facilitator, and an avid lifelong traveler and adventurer, spending his entire life since he turned 19 in places like Bavaria, Southeast Asia, Mexico, Central America, Cuba, and Colombia. Gerardo's recently published book, Taking Back My Mind, My Journey Out of Depression with Psilocybin Mushrooms, details his journey out of depression with psilocybin mushrooms, breathwork, cold plunges, yoga, meditation, time in nature, accessing flow state, travel, and philosophy, mainly being Stoic. Gerardo is currently working on a documentary about his journey, a second book detailing his recent journey with 5-MeO DMT in Tepoztlan, Mexico. I think that's how you say that, Tepoztlan, Mexico. He also has wellness workshops in California. He's doing them down here in San Diego, and he's building multiple psychedelic healing retreats in California and Mexico. You can learn more about everything he's doing at takingbackmymind.com. So without further ado, I want to welcome my guest, who I hope will be a regular on here, because we got really deep into some interesting topics that will be very informative for you, and it will bring value for anybody that's listening, because I think these medicines are here for us as humans to help us heal, you know, not only help us heal on the macro, heal the world around us, but they're here to help us heal ourselves. And within, you know, as we heal ourselves, the world heals. And, you know, I had that conversation with a buddy of mine just today. He was telling me, yeah, well, you know, I do breath work, and I know, you know, my breath work is kind of like psychedelics for you. And yeah, breath work is good. Breath work is great. But from my viewpoint, I believe that all humans could use plant medicine, because all humans have trauma and all humans have been domesticated. And this is how we break free and get into alignment with our higher power, you know, get into alignment with our true source, get into alignment with who we are. So You'll see we get more into this, and it's a very deep conversation. So thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. And make sure you share this and hit me up at The Increased Life if you have any questions or you just want to connect and see what we're doing. You know, we're bringing some light to the world with this podcast. So again, without further ado, for the second time, I want to welcome my guest, Gerardo Urias. Welcome to the show, my friend. All right, here we go. Welcome to the show, Gerardo. How you doing, man? It's good to see you.
I'm doing excellent. Thank you.
Good.
It's good to see you too. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me on the show.
For sure, man. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
You got it.
Yeah, man. So we can get right into it. I would like you to kind of share with the listener so they know who you are, how you came about, writing this book, what were the experiences that kind of transpired, and we can kind of go from there, man.
Yeah, sounds good. There's my broad story encompasses my whole life, really, but I'll start off 5 years ago, where that book starts off. And I was living in Mexico. I was married at the time, and life was going very good. After years and years of working towards this goal of sort of liberating ourselves from the grind and the 9 to 5, we achieved that. And it was pretty epic. It was an epic 4 years, absolutely. My married life was really exciting. So life then happened, and things happened, and a lot of things fell apart. My marriage fell apart, and then that dissolved everything that we've been working for. And then some family stuff. My father passed away right after our separation. So all of this is like just steamrolled right through my life. I had some health issues too, some hearing issues. I was going deaf. I had to have surgery, which turned out well, but at this time exactly, I was going through that as well. So my mental health just took a nosedive. There was really nothing I could do to get out. I tried therapy, I tried antidepressants, I tried everything. And it was very real things, my life fell apart, and then I had health issues. I didn't know how to get out of it. It was just going straight towards, a very bad ending. So that persisted for 10 months. And it would have been a very bad ending, probably the ultimate ending, because I was having suicidal ideations. I wanted an exit. It was that depth of darkness and just emptiness. And after trying everything and kind of feeling very hopeless, my brother suggested magic mushrooms. This was 4 years ago, 4+. So all this whole psychedelic renaissance and everything you're hearing now in the media was not out yet. So it's still a pretty very new idea, which I had heard of, but I didn't think it would work, honestly. But I took a leap of faith, and we ate some mushrooms, took a walk on the beach. And during this journey is where the depression dissipated and lifted. And that's the magical story that turned into the book that I wrote. I immediately decided to start writing the book 2 weeks later because the improvement continued. I just kept getting better day by day. And that developed into the book 2 years later. And that was 3 years ago, I published the book. During COVID, I published it. So since then, there's been a whole layer of things that have happened with me, and so much progress on so many fronts, and just steamrolling ahead with this mission of mine to raise awareness through books, documentaries, retreats, workshops are running now. Exciting things. So that kind of brings us to the present, a little bit of background.
Okay. So all of this, where you have a few questions, because so basically you all at one time, your marriage kind of fell apart, and then your business that was thriving fell apart. Your father passed away, and then you started having some serious health problems with hearing, and you sunk into this deep depression, and which was leading to a very dark place, and I think a lot of people can relate with the depression. So, and your brother told you take some psilocybin mushrooms, and you say that you took those mushrooms and you went from this dark place to feeling better. Was that with one experience that happened?
Yes.
And can you kind of detail that a little bit?
Yes, it was during that experience precisely. Yeah, we started the day out in the morning, and I was staying with my sister on the beach in Oceanside, right across from the pier, right down from the pier. And this is where I grew up. I grew up in Oceanside, so Oceanside is very home to me. This beach, I grew up bodyboarding, surfing on this very beach, So it was very home, and I'm so grateful that is where I was, because we didn't have a plan. This was way before set and setting, way before we had all of this knowledge now. And I don't know we would have probably just done it in an apartment, say if we were in an apartment somewhere not on the beach. And I don't know what would have happened, you know. So I happened to be like in the absolute perfect setting. And we ate the mushrooms and we decided, well, there's the beach, right? Let's take a walk. And so we just naturally and magically just took a walk. And they hit really quick. Within 15, 20 minutes, I felt a shift, felt a little tingle. And it was a reminiscent tingle. It was something I remembered because I had taken a lot of psychedelics in my youth, in my 20s. It had been a long time, but that feeling came back. And it was a really pleasant, euphoric feeling that I remembered so fondly from back in my 20s when I was raging in Europe, living there, skiing, just hardcore ski bum. And that's what I did for 3 years, ski and you know, I was 20, so party and smoke weed and eat a lot of mushrooms. It was epic. So that feeling came back and it lifted me and I just thought, whoa. And it honestly was the first feeling and emotion that I had in 10 months that wasn't just utter fear and loneliness and darkness and just doom, like everything's done. And then all of a sudden, boom, this euphoria kicks in. And then it started ramping up and we walked on the pier, everything started slowing down. And I just noticed that I felt good. And that I wasn't really thinking about everything I had been ruminating for nonstop day and night because I would have nightmares and I couldn't sleep in the first place. So when I did sleep, it was like horrible nightmares about my marriage and all these things. So I couldn't get a break. And this feeling displaced those thoughts. I just couldn't think anymore. And I wrote the books and now understanding the mechanism of what happens in the brain, that default mode network, it's called, that default mode of the ego that ruminates into the future and the past. It slows down, the blood flow slows down to that. So you kind of take that offline. So I experienced that. And then those thoughts that were right here in front of my face nonstop all the time were gone. And I was present. And then everything was beautiful. It was a beautiful sunny day in San Diego, amazing. And I just started enjoying the day. I couldn't believe it. I thought, wow, it's pretty beautiful. It's such a in-depth story. My vision came back. I had lost color vision, or at least in my memory, those last 10 months were sort of black and white, gray. And this brought color vision back. And it was color vision. I detail it in the book a bit through a case study of somebody else who experienced the same thing without psychedelics, color loss through bipolar disorder. And I had extreme depression. So his experience was similar to mine. He regained his color through cold exposure and breathwork, something known as the Wim Hof method. That brought his color vision back. And in the same way that during this psychedelic journey, my color vision came back. Very interesting. I talk about that in my book because I'm fascinated by that. Similar brain activity occurs during breath work as psychedelics, and there's something in there, that I'm trying to figure out because I haven't seen much research on that. And so it was a very liberating moment. I was just on the beach, enjoying the day with my brother. And so the feeling came on, and then the journey started, and feeling so euphoric and just incredible. We took a walk. We went back to the apartment. So at this point, depression's gone already. I mean, this is within an hour and a half that I was back to feeling good. I wouldn't even say neutral. I was euphoric. I was pretty much transported back to the incredible mushroom journeys I had in Germany. And that feeling consumed me again. And I was back to that self. I thought, wow, I remember this. This is going to be fun. And since that moment, the depression never came back.
So I got a couple questions about that. So at the end there, what you're saying is it made you feel like you were that, like, back to that childlike sense of wonder about the world and stuff, exactly. All the heaviness that we carry, kind of got rid of that. And from a physiological standpoint, what you were explaining is that it calms down the portion of the brain that makes us worry about the future and think about the past. It brings you into the moment. And this is a scientific portion of it that you were explaining. What was the system you called it? The
default mode network.
Default mode network, and it slows that down. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Psychedelics, meditation, yoga, breath work, and this is all research I did in writing of the book to find the commonalities throughout all of these states, brain states. So it's very, very common activity. As well, so those four: meditation, yoga, breath work, psychedelics, as well as children under age of 5, 7 or so, the same brain activity, essentially. So that explains that feeling of joy, that feeling of novelty, of wonder that a child has. And yes, essentially that means all children are tripping. We come into this life tripping, and then we get that default mode network. So during our first 5-7 years, it's like adults tripping, just wonder everywhere. And that is that's how we come into this world. And then the default mode network comes in, and you start making connections with patterns, and specifically when it comes to visual and brain development and how to coordinate and how to operate in this physical world. You do that through observing fractal patterning in nature, and then what fractal patterning means, and then you develop your perception of objects. This is an object, that's an object, and that's the development of the brain, the co-creation of our reality between our brain and our external environment with the universe. And that's sort of how that mechanism works. And as we age, once the DMN comes online, which is around adolescence, that default mode network, which serves as the purpose of a sense of identity, which is necessary. So the DMN, we wouldn't be around if it wasn't for the development of the DMN, which means our ego. So the ego is actually a very important function of us, which is responsible for evolution. So that sense of identity, sense of separateness, of self-serving to survive, and that becomes stronger and stronger over our life, rigid more, and the neural pathways become more and more rigid and rigid, and that develops into that rigid thinking. We can all relate with, as we get older, we just get more rigid in all respects. That's the great continuum of existence. What's inside is outside. Everything that's the best way I can say. What's inside is outside. I mean, if you think as we age, we become rigid physically, also mentally and emotionally. We get locked into the same patterns of emotion and thought and mind. So the great news about this is that can all be reversed, and we can increase neuroplasticity in that region with that mechanism of that DMN becoming so rigid. We can loosen that through all of these modalities. And that's the great thing about this whole area of health, as well, as it doesn't have to be psychedelics. We can achieve those same brain states through those other means as well, other than becoming a child again. But we can visit mentally those child states, which is magical.
Yeah. And I think, I don't know what your thoughts are on it, but in comparison, I mean, I've experienced a lot of those things. I haven't experienced anything that will bring you into those states as powerfully as psychedelics.
Oh, right.
Absolutely. And what you were saying, I was talking to a friend recently, and she was talking about, she was telling me how she had listened to one of my other podcasts, which my jiu-jitsu podcast, which had inspired her to, somewhere I talked about microdosing in the past. She heard it, and it inspired her to microdose. And she just started microdosing again, and that was her observation. She was like, I feel like I did when I was in high school. Like, I feel like a kid again. Like, everything, there's wonder in the world right now.
Right.
And she's just taking, she's taking a little bit of psilocybin every few days, and it's making her life so much better just with that. Well, let me ask you this, for the people listening, what would be, because the listeners would be, and someone who hasn't experienced this would be like, oh, that's drugs, that's bad for me, there's probably horrible side effects. And I would say the medicine that's given for depression and these type of things, those are addictive and those are poisonous. And what are your thoughts on that question for somebody asking you that, who might want to try microdosing or psilocybin, but they're scared that it's a drug, or
Right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that tackles the main issue in modern society, is that this 50-year war on drugs has been believed at large, and it is really embedded in the minds of modern society. So now there's a lot of evidence, a lot that I write in my book, and there's a lot of books out there that write about the history of psychedelics and why they're illegal, with all the research of the beneficial health outcomes using these. So all of that research in combination with the history of why they are actually illegal, which is completely political. At the end of the day, we need to just re-educate ourselves and the society, because what's believed is not true. Language is very limiting, so just the word drug in itself is a very vague term. We need to start right there, to pretty much take the word drug out of our language, because what does that mean exactly? We are made of drugs. We are made of oxytocin, of dopamine, of serotonin. So how people think of drugs as a thing externally that we take, and then it gives us an experience. But there's nothing inherently in any drug that isn't in us, and that's why it works, right? These molecules attach to our receptors, and so it's all the drug experience is activating the molecules and the chemistry and biochemistry within us that create the experience. So it's our body creating the experiences. We are constantly doing this with our perception. Perception itself is based on, and we're getting closer and closer to understanding this mechanism, but DMT, which we create in our body. DMT is the most potent psychedelic that there is, 5-MeO DMT. And we create that. And we believe it has a large part in creating our consciousness and our perception of reality. Just right there, that alone means that we depend on what we would classify as a drug and is illegal. 5-MeO, which we make in our bodies, is illegal in most of modern society. Stop for a second to think about that. And that's essentially the problem, right? So it's education of reality, which is, for example, nobody's ever died on psilocybin mushrooms because I don't believe it's possible, because it's not toxic. Then you have to kind of take the wider view as well and incorporate your environment, your upbringing, and your societal views. We know very well, and I don't think anybody would debate, that alcohol is not healthy. Then we have the staggering statistics of how many people it kills a year. I believe it's 3 million a year in the US alone. We love alcohol. And here we have this fear. And so everybody really needs to just stop at that moment and just introspect and think, why do I have this fear of this thing that's never killed one human being in history? Yet I may be drinking a beer right now. So we need to disassemble everything we've learned, pretty much, and start over with new current research and science.
Yeah, that makes sense. A thought that I had was, well, for one, just and Terrence McKenna talks about how it's insane that we are. Graham Hancock as well. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Graham Hancock. He talks about how it's insane that we are. It's illegal. For one, it's illegal to explore our own consciousness.
Right.
That's illegal. That's a federal crime to explore our own consciousness. You can get locked in a cage for exploring your own mind.
Yeah, it's wild.
And yeah, man, and that
it's wild.
That goes pretty deep, right? Because why is that? Why don't they want us to know our true power? Why can't we explore who we are? And because when we don't explore who we are and explore our consciousness, we remain these encaged, like Don Miguel Ruiz says, domesticated, almost slaves, And as soon as you start exploring who you are and realizing your power, and all that domestication breaks away, and you're free to be who you truly are, and that's illegal,
Right.
And also, as a police officer for 10 years, the number of calls that I went to because of alcohol, almost every the car accidents, the domestic violence, the abuse, the fights, the stabbings, the shootings, almost every single one of them involved alcohol.
Of course.
I never went to a violent call or anything like that because somebody was on plant medicine. Right. I never did, unless somebody was tripping too hard and they wanted
by themselves, walked off from a rave or something.
Yeah, and they got scared and somebody thought they were going crazy, but nothing violent. And and personally, I don't drink alcohol, and it's not because I don't have a problem. It's because it's poison,
Right.
And in our society, when I tell somebody that I don't drink, the first thing they say is, well, do you have a problem? Do you have a drinking problem? They think something's wrong because I don't drink. And you're talking about, we don't have alcohol receptors. Alcohol is a foreign poison that we're putting in our body. We have these endocannabinoid receptors that work directly with, mushrooms, marijuana. We produce, like you said, we produce DMT. Plants produce DMT is the way that plants communicate, and we also have that. And it's but it's just a good thing. Like what you're doing is an amazing thing, because this is what we need to heal humanity, man. And so you're doing your part. So
thank you.
Yeah. So what's your while we're on that, I kind of just want to change into kind of explaining kind of like microdosing to people, because some people think, oh, mushrooms. A lot of people I've talked to, they're scared to trip. They're scared of a big dose, and they're scared to meet their true self. They're scared of who they truly are. They're scared of
Hmm.
what they're hiding down there and that they've been hiding all these years.
Hmm.
Because most of us have trauma and we find ways to escape that trauma, right?
Hmm.
With all of these other things, we mask it. And if you take a large dose of some plant medicine, psilocybin mushrooms, you can't hide from yourself anymore, and you got to face
Hmm.
these things. But that's how we expel them. That's how we exercise our darkness. But a good way to get started on the path is microdosing. And
Right.
what
Right.
what are your thoughts on that and kind of some of the modalities? I know your experience with that. You coach people with that. So
Yes, it's very effective. Absolutely very effective. It's just another route. And I explain it that you can reach the same end really, because none of these, for me at least, in how I train people, none of my modalities are rigid in just one way. I kind of assess the person and see what they're looking for. And then that gauges the intensity of um, the psychological journey that we go on using the mushrooms, as well as the physical aspect. The physical aspect is huge for me. All the breath work and the ice bath and the routine and the state of mind, philosophy, practice. All of these things are the reason that I am where I am. It's not just the psychedelics or just any one thing. So through my own practice with myself and then how I coach others and I've seen the results in others is if they don't want the full-blown journey, then we can draw it out and do a 6-week program, but we throw everything in there. It's, for me, it's the big picture. It's okay if you want to recreate your life, because if you're not happy, if you're not joyful, then there's no one thing that you're going to have to fix. You're going to have to restructure everything, all your relationships, all of your habits, all the food you're eating, all the things you're ingesting, it starts with the bottom. And so we throw everything at it, and physical activity and the physical component is absolutely necessary, because that's what keeps the upward spiral of improvement, on the cellular level, as well as, which of course manifests out into feeling good and improving health. So I see magnificent success with that, going that route. Start a microdosing program and incorporate a health routine. That in combination can absolutely get to the same place if you have a heroic journey, heroic dose. If you have one really strong journey, that can really revolutionize your entire life in one day. Of course, I believe, and I've seen that people can get there through microdosing. It just takes longer, is more involved. Um, that's all. So there seems to be a little bit of belief around this developing that should or it should be, or it has to be one or the other. I always explain there's no or here. What I suggest is both. Again, we're dealing with a very powerful, natural, non-toxic molecule when it comes to psilocybin that is actually good for us. It's actually anti-inflammatory. It's good for our gut, for the microbiota. We're talking about a vegetable. Just redo the terminology. It's a vegetable, like the mushrooms that you buy in the store, and it's very good for you. So there's no need to limit. You just need to know how to work with it. What I suggest, and if you absolutely want to dramatically change your life, is you arrange in a responsible manner to have that big journey, and that's day one. And you clear your calendar, you get a new calendar, and you start your new life, and you write that date. For me, it's December 22nd, 2017. My life started over right there. You do the journey, and then you follow up with a guide with somebody who's trained. That's, again, that's what I do for the next 6 weeks, 3 months, a microdose protocol where you continue with the yoga meditation, uh, you know, combining everything together and integrating that original journey in with your ongoing microdosing journey. And I mean, you are not just 10xing, like 1,000xing your potential on every level, so that it's also just like a force multiplier. Think of it, microdosing like a force multiplier. It just gives you that leverage, to amplify your potential. Works as an antidepressant as well, just on the biological level. It attaches to serotonin, so you're going to have those feel-good molecules. So that's just on the physical level what happens with microdosing. There is, of course, a slight disarming of the DMN, the default mode network. So the full journey completely takes that offline if you go to that full end of the spectrum. So a microdose will do that, in a micro way, But that difference alone is enough to change lives, to see the world in a new light. My brother literally is going through this right now. Um, my broader story from where the book started to now is really incredible and magical and surreal, because he saved my life on December 22nd, 2017. And then he fell into some health issues, and he's been suffering ever since, 3, 4 years ago, almost since this happened. He's been suffering with insomnia and some health issues, and he's really suffered a lot. He just has not wanted to get out of bed. It's been sort of where I was, which is really interesting to me on, why this happened, but that's where he's been. So I finally got him to go up to Oaxaca with me right after our retreat last October, our first international retreat. And I took him to my medicine woman to heal him. And we did our ceremony, and not by our choice, but through the planning and things moving around. The date happened to land on the same date, December 22nd, that he saved my life 5 years ago. So we had this ceremony to heal him on December 22nd, which is also the winter solstice. Also, symbolic of new beginnings and around Christmas time. I mean, it's just such a powerful, magical story. And so we did our ceremony, and within 10 minutes, he fell asleep. He slept for 3 hours, which he claimed he had never done before. And then he woke up, and he didn't realize he was sleeping when we realized that there's a little bit of there's a perceptual problem there too. So his issue goes much deeper, and we've been working on it since. But he started his healing there, and he calls it CPR for his soul. The 2 weeks that he was with me in Oaxaca, he said those 2 weeks were CPR for his soul, and he had life again. I saw the lights turn on again. My brother, who turned my lights on, and that was a few months ago. He's been really so much better, a lot more life. And then I referred him to a friend who runs a microdose therapy program, because his issue is very deep psychologically, I believe. So he just started that program, and he just took his second microdose in that program yesterday. And he wrote me a text that he hasn't felt this good, and this was yesterday, hasn't felt this good in 4 years, that this is the first day in 4 years he's wanted to get out of bed. And he kept writing, and he said, wow, I am blown away. I can't believe he was having a great day. And so this is just starting, and this is now going to continue. So that's the potential of microdosing. This is somebody who has been suffering severe chronic insomnia, has been in very poor health physically, and two microdoses in 4 or 5 days into this program, he's already like feeling wonderful. So there's a lot of potential in any way that you incorporate this medicine. It's very personal. That's the thing. You develop a relationship with it. I have the deepest relationship with that medicine, with the psilocybin. That's my medicine. So it helps me when I need it. I know how it works with me. I know how it works with my body. I know if I need a little, a lot, if I need a macrodose, if I'm just, and that's the goal,
So did he have, when he was in Oaxaca with the heavier dose, did he experience, was it a difficult trip for him, or
no,
was it more euphoric, or?
No, it wasn't. My medicine woman is a real medicine woman from Oaxaca, and does her practice in the same way it's been carried forward, for thousands of years. And the way she does it, she starts you off slow with a little bit and then kind of ramps it up. But she's not doing it for the experience. She's doing it for healing. And so she taps in, she eats the mushroom, she taps into her healing zone, and then based on that and the intuition she receives, she'll give you more or less whatever the goal is. It's like she channels what is needed and then gives you that, So for him, she didn't give him that much, give him a little bit, then a little bit more, and then he fell asleep. And the issue he went for was for insomnia. That's what he went for. And so she saw he fell asleep. So, right there, she knew, and she realized, okay, I know what the issue is. It's much deeper. And so we let him sleep, and he didn't really go into like a heavy journey. When he woke up, he felt it slightly. I would say it was like a 0.4, maybe half a gram, a few micros. So he didn't have a strong journey, but we disarmed the DMN enough. We controlled the environment enough to isolate what his body is doing, and then controlling the energy through there all the things, and this is a bit of my theory, but all the things that his mind is always on, and whatever reason is preventing him from sleeping, was disarmed during those 4 or 5 hours of ceremony, and he slept. And so that gave my medicine woman enough information to continue her process. And so her process, we're talking about real healing at the soul level. So she told him, come back on the full moon in August, which is now when we're running our retreat. We're actually doing a retreat on the full moon in August and doing a big thing out of it. I'm trying to get him to go. That is what she wanted him to do. I've told him that this is one of the most powerful people on earth that told you, basically, it's a doctor's recipe. I want to see you take this mushroom. I'll see you on the full moon in August. Direct orders. So I hope he does. And I know, I mean, right now the microdosing protocol is healing, and I know he's going to make leaps and bounds. By August, maybe he's already on top of the world. Who knows? But his healing is absolutely happening, and it started the moment he fell asleep in those mountains.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
powerful, man.
Yeah.
That's yeah, super powerful. And for anybody listening, I think it's, and through my own experience, it's, the mushrooms kind of give you, in the plant medicine, they'll give you what you need, even if you're not guided. But I think it's really important, especially if you're doing it the first time, to connect with a guide or a shaman, somebody, somebody like Gerardo, who can kind of guide you through it and make sure you don't overdo it and is there to help you through the process. I think that makes a huge difference. Because like for me, the mushroom trips I had were not guided. I did have guided ayahuasca. That was still pretty difficult, but the mushroom trips that I've had, which I just went up in the mountains and did those, I was coming from a place of just not knowing anything about it. Just, so here's a bunch of mushrooms, just going to eat these. So like I said, they give you what you need, but if they gave me a lot, they gave me a lot when I took them, and I probably needed that. It shook me to my core for sure. And that's years and years of domestication and trauma just being brought up and spit out, in a few hours, and you just have to sit and deal with it. But I can say, man, from the time I did those mushrooms and then the ayahuasca, which was 3 years ago, I was telling my friend the other day that it's almost, if you look at my life then and now, there's been so many changes from the time I went to Peru and did the ayahuasca until right now. So many positive changes in my life, and I can attribute it a lot to that, because it's just it's crazy how many things changed as I change myself. As you work on yourself, I'm a big proponent of, as you work on yourself, your world changes. Your world is a reflection of your inner state. So if you're doing plant medicine and you're working on yourself and your soul and your trauma, your life is going to change on the outside. So yeah, man, that's powerful. And I love the story about your brother. We'll see if he goes back, right?
Yeah, it's incredible because it's happening literally right now in real time.
Yeah.
This whole story is playing out, and this has also been my goal. This is why I'm doing everything I'm doing. Ultimately, if you really get to know my backstory, my ultimate goal with this whole thing, aside from helping others and helping heal the world and all of that, is literally to heal my brother and to heal my family. And my family my family situation right now is very heavy because of all of this, and there's a lot of work to do. But essentially, my entire goal has been to heal my brother and my family, and that continues. That will continue the rest of my life.
Yeah, and that's powerful too, man. Because, like I said, I believe that if we want to heal the world, we got to heal ourselves,
Right.
and those around us.
Yeah.
And that's really the best we can do. And as we heal ourselves, we become a light. Like you become a light. You're healing yourself, and now you become a lighthouse for people.
Yeah. Exactly.
And I believe that's how it works, man. So
exactly. Yeah, the
now,
opening line in my book, the opening quote in my book is by David Hawkins, and it says, "Everything you see happening is a consequence of that which you are."
Yes, I love that. Everything you see happening is a consequence of that which you are.
Is the consequence of that which you are.
The consequence. Yeah, it's the consequence. Yeah, man. I love it.
As you're saying, it is your life, and every aspect of it is a mirror image of your consciousness, and the essence of who you are, of what you are, is everything you see happening.
Yes. So, and as someone who's never heard something like that, it may sound kind of nuts, but man, every spiritual teacher that ever walked the earth, and every medicine man, and everybody who's ever taught people, including probably Jesus Christ and Buddha and everybody else, would sit in front of you and tell you, if you want your life to change, you have to look within. You know, you
Yes.
have to work on yourself. You can't
Hmm.
change your husband. You can't change your wife. You can't change anything outside of yourself. That's trying to control the universe. But what you can
Right.
control is your own consciousness. And as you heal that, the world will change, you
Hmm.
know? So
Hmm. Right. Absolutely.
tell me a little bit more about this place in Oaxaca, man, that you go. Is this a village? Is this a town? Is this
Yeah, it's a
where?
friend. I was connected through very good friends and family, so it's really like a personal friend.
Okay.
And started bringing, yeah, did a retreat last year for the first time, and it's a small village up in the mountains, between Oaxaca and the beach, and Puerto Escondido.
Mhm.
And so there's
Okay.
lots of villages up around in those mountains. It's a 6 hour drive. So lots of little villages scattered about, so it's a small village, up in the mountains. And yeah, it's incredible. It's so much nature, surrounded by absolute nature, and just real Mexico, how they really do things. And the the stoves are beautiful, just made out of bricks and very simple earthy construction materials, wood fire for all the stoves, and just such a great rustic charm to that area in Oaxaca in general. I've Since I went there to start filming the documentary that I'm working about all this, this is where I went, where I started. So I just really fell in love with the area, and got really connected with the people and the locals, and spent a lot of time there. So I love doing tours and showing people everything about Oaxaca. It's incredible.
Now, is this the curandera, the medicine woman? Is
Hmm.
she still, so as far as the community there,
Hmm.
does she still administer psilocybin to the people of the community that need it
She
in
doesn't really
perpetuity?
work anymore. No, she doesn't
Okay.
really work. Yeah, she does every once in a while, I believe, with mostly people who know her.
Okay.
But yeah, she's not. It's not a tourist thing. It's not a open for business thing.
Yeah. No, no, I mean as far as like the locals.
Right. For the locals, well, she was telling me, it's interesting. She was telling me that she works when she does work, she works with people from other villages, and people from outside, because it's a very small village. And she says there's a lot of politics within the village, as with any society, right?
Mhm.
And so there's some politics where she doesn't apparently really like working too much with locals because of gossip and things like that. Uh,
Mm,
so yeah, it's yeah, there's no structure, to this existence. It's a very natural way of just being. Um, and yeah, so it's interesting how she operates, but she doesn't really operate too much locally, but then not on a big scale either.
yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, man. So I had another question, and when we had talked prior to this, I had mentioned, um, I was going through some shit, and my thing was, I'm feeling close to wanting to do another trip, maybe not a heroic, but a bigger
Mhm.
trip, just to go inside and work on some things. But I was telling you, I'm going through some shit right now, though.
Mhm.
And your response was, you started laughing, and you're like, that's probably the best time to do it, you know.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
absolutely.
and can you go into that a little bit, because I think some people are hesitant because they don't want to face the things that are going on at them, or they think they're going to have a bad trip because they're having a hard time in life right now, and
Right.
you're saying
Right.
that's probably the best time to go into a ceremony, go into yourself.
Right. Right. Most definitely. Yeah. We always feel we need to be prepared, and prepared for everything in general. We have a tendency to be prepared, and that's good. We do need to have that. But we get confused here with being prepared logistically with situationally or emotionally or mentally. We kind of get drawn into, well, I'm not in a good place right now, and therefore it may not be a good time, or I should get to a better place emotionally before I go down this path. So that's where I say, no, that's not necessarily correct, because the present challenges need to be resolved. So anything is an issue in your life, if you're having, especially if it's emotional, if it's anxiety, or whatever physical symptoms you're having, your body's communicating with you. This is another underlying educational understanding of health itself. When something's wrong, that's communication. That's your body telling you you need to do something about this. So the time is now. If you're having issues and there's anxiety, or if there's something, your body's telling you, let's do something. And this is one powerful way to do it. So you don't need to wait until there's either that, or if you wait, right? Let's just say you have a lot of anxiety and you think, okay, I'm not ready right now. Let's just wait a month. Well, you still have from this point to a month to deal with it. And we're not biologically built to feel the best all the time. We're biologically built to survive. So naturally trying to feel better is probably not going to work that well. It'll work the same as it has worked, which it hasn't. That's why you have the anxiety. So you need to do a different approach. And rather than wait and continue suffering that full month with this anxiety, you can have that result now. So there's no need to wait until you're mentally and emotionally prepared. I feel you need to be psychologically fit for it. So you need to do all of the responsible analysis of yourself and make sure foundationally and mentally that you can handle a journey. Okay, you don't have psychosis, a history of schizophrenia, things like that. If you're overall healthy and the issue is general distress over life, but you are healthy to have a psychedelic journey, then it is very important to prepare the journey, and that's logistical, right? So that is, of course, extremely important. Take a week off of work. You need to definitely have a few days off afterwards. You need to do that. That's a non-negotiable. You need to find a guide. You need to have the right setting, all of that stuff. You have to absolutely do that. That's different. That's logistical. And if you can do that, if you have the resources to do that, then I would argue that that's the most important thing you can do. Put everything else off. If that's what they say about meditation. If you don't have time to meditate, then you need 3 hours of meditation. So if you're dealing with that, there's no reason to put it off. We don't have that much time on this earth, so you don't want to live in this constant state of distress or anxiety or just a lack of joy. In my opinion, that is the most important problem to resolve. So if that's your situation, but you're putting that on the back burner, saying that, I'm going to wait until this, and this, until that's ready. Well, priorities are really off. Joy needs to come now. Fix the joy, fix the present issue of distress. And we have the ways to do that. We've seen all the evidence, and then everything else falls into place. So it's a restructuring mentally too of your life situation.
Okay. Yeah. So if you're listening and you're scared to go for it for whatever reason, Gerardo's saying that means now is probably the time to just go for
Absolutely.
it. Heal
Absolutely.
yourself now, or else you'll be scared forever and you'll continue to suffer, and you will never be able to exercise that darkness that can turn into many sicknesses, including disease and that type of thing. So
right. That's the bigger picture. And again, that's why I say it's actually imperative. It's imperative. If you're living with a constant elevated levels of epinephrine, of cortisol, you're going to become ill eventually. So this is imperative for health. That decision right there is absolutely imperative for the future of your health.
Yeah, very clear. That's very clear. And that's another thing that I don't think a lot of people in our society understand because of Western medicine, that,
Right.
Stress and past trauma built up and you're hiding it. Like we talked about, you're pushing it down and doing other things to hide it. Man, that can clearly turn into disease, within your body, physiologically. And
Absolutely.
we have these medicines that the earth has given us that can help us clear all that shit out so that we can be healthy, so that we can live healthy, happy lives. Right. And it's illegal. It's illegal. You guys can't be healthy and happy. Fuck
I know. At the end of the day, that's what it is. Is the medicines that we are seeing can really make you healthy. You're not allowed. You're not allowed the medicines that can make you healthy. That's essentially what's happening.
Yeah, which is crazy. Which I look at it like, I mean, maybe hypothetically, but if you have a bunch of, if you have this nation of people who are enslaved, maybe it's mentally, whatever it may be, that, you want to keep them as downtrodden and as unhappy as possible. Give them some entertainment here, give them some entertainment there, keep them entertained with politics, keep them entertained with the news, whatever it may be. But don't let them figure out how powerful they are. Don't let them become healthy and happy creators, because then it becomes a threat to the system, right? When everybody's happy and creating and no longer under control and no longer walking through life and as a fucking zombie, and everybody stepping into their power as artists, and creating from their heart and sharing with the world, then all of a sudden there's no, you don't need the government anymore. You don't need anybody controlling you and telling you what to do, because everybody's healthy and happy. So
Mm-hmm.
let's fucking keep that illegal. We want to make
Mm-hmm.
sure everybody stays in a dark cloud of fear, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and cancer and, you know, all these diseases that come with it. So, but the tide is changing, man, and consciousness is rising. And we got people like yourself who are sharing these modalities with the world, these medicines, the real medicine that can change people's lives. And like we said, when you change someone's life, their world changes. So, yeah, man, it's powerful shit. So, um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
you know, I wanted to ask you about your experience with DMT, man, because
Yeah.
we've talked about mushrooms, but I know you've experienced DMT, straight
Right.
DMT,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I know people are learning more about that now and interested in that as well. So I've had people
Yeah.
mention it to me. I've had people say, "Oh, mushrooms, I don't want to trip." People are so scared, you know, I don't want to trip for 4 hours, but I want to try DMT because they
Right.
say it's 15 minutes, and I'm like,
Right.
well,
Right.
I mean, it may be 15 minutes, but from what I've heard, it could seem like an eternity, you know,
Right.
and though it's
Right.
15 minutes. But what was your experience with that?
Yes, DMT very, very powerful as well. There's a few different forms of DMT, and as we mentioned before, our body produces DMT, a few different forms as well. Um, so it's something again that is we depend on for our perception of reality. It's found in nature, throughout plants. It's a very common molecule, really, throughout nature. And a specific type of DMT, 5-MeO-DMT, which is the strongest, most potent experience, psychedelic experience there is. That is what the poison of the Sonoran desert toad, the Bufo alvarius toad, carries on its skin. And somebody figured out not too long ago, actually, this isn't an ancient medicine, I believe it was in the 70s or 80s. A man named Albert Most discovered this and somehow figured out if you scrape the poison and dry it in the sun and smoke it, you're going to get really high. So that was the birth of 5-MeO-DMT. That is what I tried. I've tried both forms of DMT, both very powerful. One is more visual, the NN-DMT, which is normal DMT, or not normal. There's NN-DMT, which is somewhat more common. That produces a lot of visuals, a lot of hallucinations. Very interesting, a lot of mathematical figures that I saw, a lot of geometry. The 5-MeO-DMT, much more powerful for me. It's not visual. It is a body sensation. And it is very hard to describe, but the best way I can describe it is that it is the experience of death, of dying. And through current research, we have a lot of reason to believe that that is what occurs when we die. When mammals die, there's a flood of DMT. So it is also known as the spirit molecule for that reason. It has something to do with those doors of perception, with the on that line between the unconscious and the conscious. For some reason, DMT is present there. It's present in our when we are born in both the mother and child. It's present, they believe, when we dream, when we sleep. Could be responsible for dreams. It is activated during breath work. So during the cyclical hyperventilation breath work, styles like the Wim Hof method, there's DMT release that I have felt, very, very strong bursts of DMT, especially early on, the first few years of doing the Wim Hof method. I don't get them as much anymore. It seems like I have to do many more rounds to get to that level. It came very easily at first. So that's endogenous DMT and very powerful. Yeah, short, 10, 15 minutes, but it's again, dying. So you lose your perception of all reality, awareness of your body, of your surroundings, of space and time itself, of you, of your identity, of who you are, of anything. I mean, literally going into an abyss, and it is the abyss, I guess, is what I experienced. This feeling of eternity, this feeling of waking up, falling asleep, simultaneously to an eternal dream. The most profound feeling I've ever had as far as on a physical level of just so quickly being blasted into a different realm. And you get to deep in your subconscious. So I had on several times that I did it, I had very deep rooted trauma surface through me and bubble up out of me, and much beyond an analytical level, much beyond what you can describe. It was the emotion itself. It was the experience itself, the experiences themselves of the specific trauma escaped. and just escaped out of me, almost like force of energy. And very powerful, right? Very liberating. Um, and it's interesting because it goes so deep, way beyond your mind, your thinking mind, that for 20 minutes you're like at the core of your subconscious, and you're very clear on what's going on and what's happening as far as the cleaning and the purge, the um, complete surrender and disassembling of our construct of reality. And it's a complete acceptance, because it's so powerful, you have no choice but to accept it, to surrender. And then you come back very quickly, and within an hour you're right back to where you were before, normal. And it's almost like you don't really hang on to that feeling. It's almost like waking up from a dream, where it's very concrete when you first wake up, the first few seconds, and then it dissolves rapidly, and then you don't really remember what that dream was. It's sort of like that. But that area and that place that you touched bubbles up and emerges over the next few weeks. And the work that the medicine does what it has to do deep within you, and you come out. For me, I came out with a very deep peace regarding a lot of issues, a very deep peace in general towards life. I think it really helps diffuse any fear of death, because again, you essentially taste death. You have a taste of what death can be like. So that, I think, subconsciously definitely reduces fear of death. I definitely don't feel I have a fear of death. It's also because the philosophy that I study, Stoic philosophy, focuses heavily on death. So I'm very comfortable with that. But on a physical level, I believe it has a very big effect, should somebody have a fear of death.
Okay. So you did experience, so it was some heavy healing as well with
Absolutely.
this. Okay, yeah.
Absolutely.
Because I just want to make that clear, because the perception is that, and I was just talking to somebody the other day, a good friend of mine, and still to this day his perception is, well, I can experience that other ways. You're just doing drugs, you know. And with, like we've talked about before, we got to change that paradigm. We got to shift the paradigm into understanding these are medicines that will heal your soul, you
Right.
know. And
Right.
that's a real thing. And you're explaining exactly what it did for you, the healing that it's done for you. And that's why I wanted to have you on here. I want to share this. I want to get this message out, because
Mm-hmm.
everybody needs some healing, man.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
there's nobody that doesn't, nobody that walks this earth, I think, pretty much, that doesn't need some healing, at least in our
Right.
society, you know.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man, that's powerful. Um, one thing I was going to ask you about was the oh, you mentioned that. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The eh, when I was on DMT as well, and this is just random, but I also saw, like, I lost my sense of existence for a little while, and I was kind of, I thought I had gone insane, and that was just part of it. But I also saw the mathematical equations, like it was the universe. I was in the universe. I was the universe. I was just
Right.
the fucking universe.
Right.
And I'm looking around kind of, and everything is mathematics. It was weird. And I'm not a mathematician or anything, and I'm not into
Right.
math. I don't care about math, but everything was fucking equations. And that's just a trip,
Oh yeah, I saw the
it,
most complex mathematical equation in my life
yeah. Right.
working itself out, sort of like in a vertical picture, like the Matrix, the movie, those green numbers,
Oh,
almost identical to that. And it encompassed my whole field of vision, eyes closed, and just mathematical equation just working itself out. It was wild.
that's nuts, man. It
Yeah.
makes you think, like, and it makes you think, like, you theorize with these things, and you're like, are we a fucking program or what? Like, why are we seeing
Right.
mathematical
Right.
equations when we go deep within ourselves? So
Right. Right.
you learn a lot about yourself and the universe and life and God by using these
Yeah.
medicines.
Oh
God
yeah.
is that's another we didn't really touch on that, and everybody has a different view of what God is, but from the research that I've just been doing through life, and I'm sure you have too, uh, a lot of ideas on God have originated through psychedelics, through plant medicine. Even there's some theories that Christianity started through psychedelic medicine. There's that book, you mentioned it, where they talk
The
about
immortality key.
the immortality key. Yeah, and that's a
Yeah.
he goes, that guy spent. I listened to his story. The author of that book spent years dedicating his life to this
Right.
research, and he's like a high level linguist, I think
Right.
is what it's called, linguist, right? So he's able to
Hmm.
interpret all these languages and tell you what they were actually talking about. And the conclusion he came to is that, like in Greece, right, when Plato and all
Right.
those guys were going to this place called Eleusis, they were all doing
Hmm.
psychedelics, and he even
Yes.
alludes to the fact that Jesus may have also been on that, somehow connected to that. I'm not saying that's the truth,
Right.
but I'm saying there's a
Right.
lot of
Right.
stuff that leads back to that. And to my
Yeah.
experience, man, I mean, I can't, I don't think you can actually say what it's hard to say what God is if you're being told what God is, right? So most people are told their whole
Right.
life, this is a book,
Right.
whatever religion you're in, this is God, this is what you believe about God, and you're just taking someone else's story, the words, the sounds that are coming out of their mouth, and they're
Yeah.
telling you. And so most people are basing their life on that, right? But the true
Right.
essence of learning what God is experiencing it for yourself. And I believe when I did
Right.
mushrooms, when I did ayahuasca, I understood what God was after that.
Right.
And I
Right.
really can't
Mhm.
explain it. I can't explain it, but I knew what God
Right.
was and I knew what death was.
Hmm.
And like you had said before, when we met, we're just kind of evolved. We're kind of higher level primates just making these noises out of our mouth. And
Right.
it's really hard to explain with these noises and sounds the truth that we're trying to explain. So it's hard to explain a psychedelic
Right.
trip for somebody who's never done it. But and that will be the last question I kind of ask you before I let you get going here. You probably got stuff to do. But what has been your experience
Um,
as far as God? What
yeah.
is your experience with psychedelics and God, and how has your understanding kind of changed through psychedelics?
Hmm.
And has it at all?
Yeah. Right.
Has it at all?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's an interesting book that you bring up because that's all evidence based, and this liberation of the mind and the consciousness and exploring your own consciousness. This has been the human battle throughout our evolution, throughout existence. These mind altering and consciousness expanding plants have been suppressed over and over and over throughout humanity, specifically precisely because of what you mentioned, that it's hard to control a free mind. And here we are seeing it again emerge. And one of the main reasons back throughout history that they were suppressed was because these plants offer you a direct access to the divine. That's how I feel. That's what I feel when I go into those deep realms. That it's a direct access to the divine, which coordinates everything in the universe, essentially God, right? And so that's very threatening to the Catholic Roman Church. That's very threatening to any institution or religion that tells you what God is, based on a story, any sort of mythology of any kind, which is most religion falls into a storyline. Humans naturally can attach to a story. And so they found out that it was easier to control people to give them a story of existence, have them believe that, and prohibit them from having their own direct access to God. So that's why we're in this battle. That's why we've been in this battle. They emerged back during the Spanish Inquisition, went underground again. They started to creep up during those thousands of years. And the 60s was the first time they popped up in our current history in the past century. So that was a pop-up and then suppressed again. Why political again? Free minds are hard to control. What was going on at the time? Vietnam. Very difficult to conduct a war and go and take over another country if people at home are actually thinking about the war and thinking about the ethics of war and these deeper questions that they don't want you thinking about. So that's some of why, a little more of why they're illegal in the bigger context. And it is a war of consciousness. It is a war of some call it a spiritual war, and I see that as well. But it's most definitely a war on the divine innate right to explore our own consciousness, which again is access to the divine, access to our own God. And that's what it is for me. God to me is everything. All of my knowledge, especially the book, but that's the basis of how I try and operate. I studied the Stoic philosophy. That's in my book. I write about that heavily in my book, and that's the operating system I try and run on. And the Stoics viewed God as synonymous with nature. So Stoic philosophy popped up between the transition of many gods, of the Greek gods. You know, there was multiple gods, and the sun god, the moon god, and now we have the era of monotheism, of just one god, whatever that god may be. It's monoistic. So between that era, we didn't exactly know, and so during that time, Stoicism pops up as a way to monitor ourselves and how to make the big how to answer the big life questions, using logic and reason. And one of their methods, big methods of doing this, was to observe nature and extrapolate the lessons learned, observed from nature, and apply them to yourself in every respect of life. And through that, they viewed that process as almost dancing with God, of communicating with God, of learning. God is literally teaching us lessons through nature. So that's the language. So our language is observe nature. And for me, that is absolutely beautiful. That's what I try and do. And that's what it is, which means God is everything. There's nothing that isn't God. Every single thing you see, touch, hear, smell, experience is a manifestation of God, of the universe. It's all experience is the product of everything that's happened since the Big Bang and before, which we don't know. Well, before insinuates we have an understanding because it's linear and time would be a component of reality, but we don't even know what time is. And this is where language and words get complicated. But it's essentially the product of all of existence, is every single second of your life and everything, everything, you know. So that's the best way I can describe it. For me, what God is all everything.
Yes, that's beautiful. I agree. And I'll add to that I've, during just starting young, reading about these, because like I told you before, my dad was like, hey, I can't tell you what God is. He was raised a Catholic. He's like, I can't tell you what God is. You got to find that on yourself, find that on your own. And so it just sent me on this mission, and reading all these things from all these spiritual teachers, it made sense, but it was hard to comprehend. But as soon as I connected with the plants, I was able to understand all of these great spiritual teachers' explanation of God. And until I experienced it, they were just words on a page, somebody telling me their experience. But then when you experience it, you realize, like, man, like you said, God is all there is. God is infinite wisdom. God is the field of all possibilities. God is, all that there ever is, all that there ever was, and all that there ever will be. And we are God, right? We create our own world. We create,
right,
like we talked about earlier, we are the creators.
right.
We create. As we fix ourselves, as we heal ourselves, our world is created. How powerful is that? And I think we forget how powerful we are. And we have forgotten how powerful we are. Right. And that might be, like you said, that might be on purpose. These powerful beings have had their power taken from them over thousands of years, but we're getting it back, man. So
yeah. Yeah, it's, like I mentioned, it's back. It popped up. It's been around since we've been around, look into the Stone Age theory. But ever since we started having language and societies, it's again popped up and repressed. And the last time it popped up before the 60s was back during the Spanish Inquisition. 60s failed. Now it's back. So we are at a nexus point, probably the biggest nexus point in our evolution. And it is no coincidence the plants are here. And I believe they're trying to save us from ourselves. And through co-evolving with the plants, then I think it'll be a happy ending, but we absolutely need the plants. Their wisdom is far superior to anything humans can possibly muster up. I mean, fungus, for example, was the first life form on Earth 4 billion years ago. So that wisdom, we need that wisdom. We need help. We need to lose our ego to society. We obviously need help. Plants are pretty smart. Let's have the help of the plants. I think it's about time.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, and we can tap into their wisdom. They allow us to. They're giving us.
Right.
They're like, here,
right.
let us help you.
Right.
And so yeah, it takes stuff like this and sharing your book and just continue sharing. I mean, like you said, it's a huge nexus, and right now it's to the point now where it's becoming legal in places because they're seeing the effects it has on people who are depressed. And there's medicines being created around this, and it's every few months a new place has it's a little bit more legal here. They're allowing testing here, this college is working on it here, so it's happening. So it's a good
Right,
thing.
right. I mean, we're in a very good position. In the
Yeah.
60s, it came up abruptly, and there was not too much education behind it. Perhaps society wasn't ready then, but now we have many institutions behind it, many universities, most of the big universities around the world, the intellectual community. We have a lot of powerful people behind it. This time it's being done, I feel, more responsibly. It's has a much stronger base, much more momentum. It has much more solid science. Our scientific tools are much more advanced, so we can dig into the brain even more. That's just going to grow exponentially. Our capacity to understand these molecules is going to grow exponentially. So I believe it is here for good. It's here, and has the time has now started for it to really take foothold in our societies and start to revolutionize and change society from the ground up. You know, and
Yes.
yeah, one more thing I wanted to add uh, to the idea of God, because this is an important element that I hope others can understand, that one of the forms that, for me, the way that I attain that feeling of a connection with God is connection to self. And so the plants help us to really foster that connection to self on a spiritual level, on a soul level, and the research I've been doing even on a physical level, how being more mindful improves our capacity to be mindful. So it increases the activity between cells that can increase our interoceptive awareness, which is the communication between cells in our body. So we can dig deeper and deeper into our own self. And what I've experienced is the more that I can experience my true self and the deeper I connect to myself, and that's having that inner peace, that's just knowing, it's just that inner peace that you are a divine being, and that connection to self, to source, is the connection to God as well. And that's what the plants allow us to do, is the connection with the plants create connection with ourselves. Our connection to ourselves equals the connection to God. Connection to God equals overall health because of a sense of belonging, because of all the beauty that comes with that.
Yes. That's beautiful. We I believe, we get out of resonance with our natural resonance is God. Like that's our energy. We resonate with God. We are
Right.
God. But
Right.
because of all this poison and domestication, we get out of our resonance and we get out of alignment with God. And like you said,
Yes.
as one thing that the plants do and mindfulness is bring you back into that vibration. And as you get close into that vibration, you develop an inner peace and you can create from that position. And, it's nothing really can bother you as much as,
Right.
you can walk through life a lot happier as you get into alignment with God. And yeah, man, it's a beautiful thing. And the
Right.
plants that we're talking about can really help you get into alignment with God. They will bring you
Mhm.
directly into alignment for a moment, for some,
Right.
for at least a little while. And then you come out of that and you have to, what's the word, where you work on it? Integrate,
Integrate. Hmm.
integrate. Yeah.
Hmm.
You integrate what you learned into your life.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah,
Right.
man.
Marcus Aurelius, who now we know that these guys were, getting high on the Kukion and Ulysses when they were writing the Stoic philosophy, which led to a lot more philosophies. But he has one of his sayings is, "Nowhere can man find a more untroubled or quieter retreat than in his own soul." And
Mm,
I imagine that he was really high on the Kukion when he felt that, and he was meditating for hours and hours, and that's what he means. And I know that feeling very well. That's why meditation is amazing. When you're in that zone within your soul, there is no more untroubled or quieter retreat or more blissful, peaceful place. So it's all within yourself, that idea of peace and heaven that exists now within ourselves.
yes, sir. Yeah. And Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor, right, of
Emperor of
Rome,
Rome, yeah,
emperor of Rome, which was that was the empire that
yeah,
was
at the peak,
at the peak of the biggest empire, and he's left all of this wisdom,
yeah,
and we now know that there's probably a really good chance that he was using psychedelics to go within and connect with
yes,
God, and
yes,
that's what's generating all of this wisdom
yes,
he's sharing
right.
with people. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. And
man.
no coincidence that philosophy fell in my lap
Right.
right after the mushrooms did back in 2017.
Yeah.
No, it's no wonder I love that philosophy so much. I mean, that is how I think when I'm in a deep journey, is exactly those thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. You're making me want to go read Meditations now. Marcus
Yeah,
Aurelius. I'm gonna go
that's
check it out. Yeah.
one of the ones you always read, right? Go back to it whenever.
Yeah, definitely. So
Yeah.
right on, man. Well, shoot, I know you probably got stuff going on today. So
Always.
yeah, man, I
Yeah,
appreciate
the
you being
grinding.
here. So just real quick, man, tell us about some of the things you got going on and where people can find you. I know you got your shirt right there. Your show the
Yeah.
shirt. Yeah, it
Yeah.
says San Diego. It's got that mushroom on it, and that's on his
Yeah.
website. Hey, I like that. I'm gonna get one of
And
those
then on the
for sure.
back, I've got different things. This one has
Confine yourself to the present, Marcus Aurelius. That's dope, man. I got to get one
yeah.
of those. I'm gonna get
Yeah,
one of
I,
those for
I have
sure,
them
man.
on my shop, on my website. So I have shirts, hats, beanies, sweaters, all kinds of things with mushroom swag. I have inspirational quotes on some shirts and some funny shirts. So all kinds of merch and swag that you can purchase to help raise awareness. It's a great way to, raise awareness, and people love them. They really do. Start talking, that right there, somebody, you could be walking on the road and somebody sees your shirt and they, hey, that's interesting. That could spark a conversation about mushrooms. That could lead that person to investigate about microdosing. That could change their entire life. These things are the things that are happening in my life. It really does happen. A shirt can spark something like that. So, and all the proceeds I use to fund further retreats and just grow this whole business and vision that we are working on to hold safe containers for people to really be able to heal. So yeah, there's a shop on my website, and we have several events coming up in San Diego. We've already have started workshops and doing retreats, and then starting up ceremonies for when decriminalization does go through in California. So trying to be really the first psychedelic retreat in San Diego once that happens. And we have a retreat in Oaxaca coming up in August with our medicine woman that we spoke about briefly. So that's coming up at the end of July. That's going to be a mastermind ascension mastermind retreat. All of the biggest movers and shakers I know, any yoga instructors or anybody in the wellness space that wants to, get together in the mountains and put our heads together, have a think tank, and see how we can possibly make some pretty dramatic positive change in the world somehow. So that's in August. I have a big talk coming up in Santa Barbara on May 31st for Mental Health Awareness Month at District 216. It's a exclusive psychedelic club. So I have that coming up, and a lot of things. You can find out about all of this at my website on takingbackmymind.com, and the book is there as well.
Right on. And you also you do coaching too. We talked about that. You do
Yeah, I do
coaching through.
private coaching, personal spiritual development classes, the 6 week to 3 month microdose program, self-improvement programs. I do ceremonies as well. If you want to dive deep right away and go into a one-on-one ceremony, I do those as well. And yeah, absolutely. Pretty much anything at all in this space of improving your health, not even just psychedelics, of course. You can come to me and I can really help instill the tools in you for you to really dramatically improve your health based on breathwork, cold exposure, all of that. So I can really help you in any regard from anywhere you are. Really, it's all about improvement. If you're in a really dark place, perfect. This has a limit. If you're doing very well already, well, we are breaking some pretty serious ground in what we are doing, and so let's keep elevating. Maybe we can get you on our team. So it's all about constant elevation.
Yep. Elevate, man. Now, can somebody work with you who's not in San Diego?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, marketing and things like that, video editing, there's always remote work that we need, and our team's expanding.
And as far as coaching, same thing. If someone wants to work with you,
yes, online.
They can do it online
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely. Yeah. We just set up a Zoom and we can even do all the physical activities, just like an online yoga class, essentially. And we work through all the physical stuff as well as the integration phone calls. Okay. And all of that. Not the journeys themselves. Microdosing, yes, because that's microdosing, and you would have your microdose pills over there. The journeys, of course, you can't do that online. That's in person. But anything aside from that, it is online.
Perfect.
Or can be. If you're in San Diego, it's in person if you want it to be.
Perfect. Okay. And one other thing, your Instagram is Gerardo Urias?
Gerardo Urias 77.
Okay. 77.
Yeah, 77 is the book. That's the book's IG. I have a personal IG too, which is Urias77. So those are my two Instagrams.
Oh, okay. Right on. Okay, man. Well, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. That was a really good talk. That was good, man. So I can't wait to share this. And we'll wait a few months and do another one and see where you're at, man, and just keep it up. Keep putting the message out, man.
Absolutely. Anytime. I'd love to hop back on in a few months, maybe after our retreat, and we can talk about how that went.
That would be awesome. Right on. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. If you don't mind, just hold on for just a second.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Okay, thank you.